Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. This episode, we have a lot to talk about because my special guest has 2 decades as an editor, an investigative reporter, a web content strategist. She is currently working on some really unbelievable things. She was a senior editor for BeliefNet.com. You may be familiar with that. Lots and lots of information was there, but she has moved on to something that's providing a lot more outreach to those of us who need to move forward and get a little bit more information in a lot of different areas. And we're going to talk to her about that today. And in addition to that, she is a graduate of Norfolk State University. She's working on her first novel. And most of us who are busy people usually tend to get a lot of things done. So she's going to share with us all of the things that she's doing. And with that, she is just an incredible woman with a lot to share, currently working at the Christian Post and christianpost.com. So you're going to want to find out some information about what she's doing, what kind of views that she has that's going to be able to make your head spin today and begin to take some steps in a direction that maybe you didn't think that you were going to go to that is really healthy. Welcome, Corine, Gatti, to the show.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you, Rebecca.
I'm excited too. You have so much that you're doing. You have so many things that you have done. So let's move back a little bit, because to get with the amount of things that you're working on right now, it means that you have had to establish some type of a foundation. And with that foundation, where did it start for you?
To be quite honest, Rebecca, I got a late start. I started college at 23, 24 years old. My music career didn't take off, long story short. And I started in community college, and I just wanted to be actually a sports reporter. And I just, worked my tail off to get, where I needed to go. And I just felt like the Lord wanted me somewhere else other than music, which was quite heartbreaking at the time. That He just started just directing my steps in a totally different direction.
That's really interesting, because a lot of times we kind of feel like we have this interest and this passion for something, and as we're getting involved with it, there's other things that come up and we think, I need to explore this other area just a little bit deeper, because there's something coming out here that I didn't even know was there, or that was there that is starting to flourish in a way that I wasn't ready for.
And you keep hitting your head against the wall, and it's just, when God's not opening up anything, then sometimes you just want to let it go and just lay it at the altar. And this was a time before, there wasn't all this division in the country and so much upheaval. And I just feel like God is just moving, even in the hearts of men now. I mean, there was a lot calmer around then. But today, I feel like, being able to be involved more with editorial and opinions, which I'm sure we'll get into that. I love opinions. Mm-hmm. All of us have them. So it's really kind of when I went into sports entertainment, and just things just kind of evolved from there.
This is really neat.
Very surprising. I did not want to go it. Trust me. I was
okay.
So, interesting though. Very interesting road. Very interesting.
Sometimes us being pulled in a direction is really the first sign for us to be paying attention to what that is going to mean for us. Because sometimes we think, well, I'm being pulled that direction. I really don't want to go there. And it could be because that's too much work. I'm not interested. This is going to take too much time away from the things that I really enjoy. And then the list goes on. And yet when we heed to those callings, we find out that there are some blessings down the road that we had no idea that were going to be way better for us than we could have ever envisioned ourselves.
Exactly. It's like staying at the same job for too long. And, sometimes, you find your way out, and sometimes God pushes you out of that nest. And doesn't necessarily mean it feels great, but it's a blind faith, and that's just something that we have to continually face and walk as believers. And yeah, kicking and screaming, friend.
What I'd like to say about that is something that I've had a personal view on myself, because in the Christian world, we always, and even if you're secular, you may have heard this phrase, and that is, when one door closes, another one opens.
Right.
And for me, I've always felt that my mission in that particular arena, so whether, for example, I was in law enforcement. So when that ended for me at one agency, which was not a bad thing at all, I had got married, but transitioning to another agency, in between, you're thinking, my goodness, I have this new thing. I mean, marriage is more in the hierarchy of the way it goes: God, your family,
right,
and then other things down the road. So I prioritize, but it's kind of scary when you leave. But in my mind, it was the mission that I had by God. I had served it at that particular agency, and now he was directing me to another area, another missionary type of position. And for us in the United States, we automatically think, when you hear the word missionary, that it's somebody going to go overseas and they're to do certain church activities in some country.
right.
But we mission and minister to people all the time right where we're at, and we've been called to a specific field because of our interests, because of all of the different type of personality, characters, likes, dislikes, all of those things that God designed us to be like, and he's placed us there for that reason. And that's our mission. That's where we're there to serve. And so I like what you're saying about this, in that, I mean, even with the pulling of teeth, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then you just find out how awesome it is.
Yeah, and it's not, you don't know it's going to be awesome, of course.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think that we look at it, even our careers, as being a type of missions work. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's something that we overlook, and we think, oh yeah, that's for other people in the church to do, and that's for them to go to Africa and just go to minister to people. And
yes,
it's actually right here in your neighborhood. It's right where you are right now, and what you're doing right now as well. And it's kind of like, I just got the chills thinking about it, because it's just opens up your whole world, doesn't it? That perspective. And over 40 now, and it's taken a long time to get there, but hey, nonetheless, we're here. So.
Well, yes, and with that comes wisdom. And so when we begin to start thinking about all of the different experiences and the trials and tribulations that have come our way, it's easier to understand the expression, when one door closes, another one opens, but it also allows us to know that things are going to be okay. Because I think when we're a lot younger, fear is so overwhelming about taking on a new position or moving or some life transition. It's scary. So going from the music industry to becoming an editor had to have been just a huge change.
Yeah, and it was. And journalism, I loved it. I loved the interviewing, and I loved that one-on-one, and it kind of just went from there. And to be honest with you, the season of writing so much just started to end. I was just like, it was just not for me as much anymore. So, and then just got open up an opportunity with the Christian Post, and so here I am. And we provide a platform for people to voice their opinions, and not everyone's going to agree with it. We were able to push the envelope. So yeah, it's been, I'm happy where I'm happy. It was time to move on from writing, and not that I do interviews, still do interviews, not as intense. And I think God knew it was like, all right, you know what, we need to push you along somewhere else and doing something else. So
that creative side doesn't go away.
It doesn't, it really
It
doesn't.
just moves. It flows in a different way. And
Yes.
so I understand that because I loved to write. I love the English language, and there's just so many things that you can convey with it.
Mhm.
And so I'm kind of like you though, because I really do like interviewing and I do like talking to people, because there's some things that writing can't bring about. And that's the passion and the intonation that someone has in their persona.
That's so true. Yeah.
And yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, bringing that out just sort of, it just kind of really brings this whole well-rounded understanding
Mm.
of something, of a message, of a person. There's so much to it. So with the Christian Post,
Mm.
talk to me about what you're doing now, because what you're doing, and I want you to really share this with the audience, because what you're doing is changing lives.
Yeah, I'm with the Christian Post now. I am the editor, a section editor of a section called Voices. It was launched in November. And the thing with the Voices is that we're able to have a Christian Palestinian write an article, and we're
Okay.
able to push the envelope a little longer, that, yeah, a little, excuse me, a little, push it a little bit, make it broader, and
Okay.
a little more edgier than maybe the Christian Post can. But we'll have a
Believe
counterpoint.
me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll have a counterpoint. And we've had like this gentleman, this Christian Palestinian, write an article, and then we had another evangelical write an article to counter, his counterpoint, but it was done in a respectful manner. And that's something that we really need to start doing as Christians,
I agree with you, because there's a
Yeah,
lot of denominations.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
if you take away just kind of some of the organizational structure of it, and you get down to the meat and potatoes of biblical
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, then you have your audience is so wide to really be able to reach out. And instead of saying this way is the only right way, and respecting other people's
Mm.
beliefs, but yet sending a message to share your own passion in a way that broadens someone else's understanding is huge.
It really is. And I think it's unprecedented. And I commend them for taking that leap to do that, because I don't know of another Christian organization that would do such a thing, but where it's not creating this negative atmosphere. Don't get me wrong. People, when they disagree, they disagree. And but we want this conversation. We want to open it up, and especially living in where we, in this country where we're so divided.
Yes.
And it's like, all right, let's talk about it. We don't just do conservative topics. We do, don't get me wrong, but we have other people coming to the platform. We invite Christian libertarians to share their views. We need to have a conversation. Doesn't mean we need to agree, but we need to have the conversation. And I think what they did here it's pretty progressive, to be honest with you. So.
Mm-hmm. This is really interesting, because there's a lot to talk about. And let me just go. You're supposed to have a separation of church and state, right? But it's really sort of blended into something that is not that anymore. And so you have a lot of people that are really dragging mud into areas that shouldn't be. And so for someone to be able to voice their opinion freely without being, we shouldn't have any monetization in the sense of free speech, unless of course that there's going to be certain legal issues that have to do with terrorism and harming other people and so on and so forth. But it isn't like that. You have a massive amount of media out there that are really honing in and zeroing in on bringing things to the table that are not real, and then blinding people or making it so that they are excluded from being able to use that site. And so there's a lot of media sources that are doing that right now. And those who do want to share their opinion in a healthy way, in a humble way, in a way that can really make a lot of really healthy changes for people, they're just being, censored so badly that I think this platform that you're offering allows people to share the things that need to be heard and the values that we've so much lost.
It's true. It's true. And I just, don't get me wrong. I mean, we have our own guidelines. I mean, we read everything to make sure, we're not going to promote hate and so forth.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's in the area like you talked about fake news. It's basically fake news. I don't know what to believe anymore either. And it's a hypocrisy we're living in. And
yes.
It's like, and you got organizations like yourself and your show that are able to expose it layer by layer, and other ministries and news outlets as well. So I am totally agree with you regarding that. And this is how change happens. This is how change happens, whether it's with us or not.
Yes.
This is how it changes, and in shows like yourself. So yeah.
And so now you're accepting contributors to Voices.
Yes, I am. Yeah, we are, and and they can contribute as much as they want, and the visibility that they will get is unprecedented. We have a very strong social media presence. For the most part, we're pretty lenient, but if it's something that, like we talked about, if it's hateful or it's like not quite a fit, we won't run it. But for the most part, people have just been very open and they've been candid, but they've been respectful, and that's the thing. You guys can hash it out. You can agree to disagree, but let's have it. And I rather read something like that than read all this hate and so forth. And so yes, we're accepting submissions daily. So
I really like how you have hit on something here, because we have such diversity here in the United States, and so we're going to have a lot of people with different opinions, which is totally okay. But you've hit something so profound in that it's the way that they are hashed out, if you will. There is a kind way to get your message across and say you don't agree without being disrespectful, hateful, rude, crude. I mean, the list goes on.
I don't need a salacious headline. I want a headline. Don't get me wrong. I want to grab you and keep you, but you won't find salaciousness on the site. But
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Tell us more about your novel, because it's very difficult to write. For some people, just to write just a few sentences, right? Or a poem, or a thesis.
Yeah, you're preaching. Let me tell you, it's taken me about 15 years on and off, and I'm not even done, because I forget about it. I'm not gonna be a hypocrite and be like, oh yeah, I have a long way to go, and I would need a lot of prayer anointing to finish it, but it's something I've been trying to work on since my 20s. So it's been a long time, because then you put it away, like, I'll do it another day, and what? By then it's like 2 years later. So if you're working on your novel out there, do it now. Don't be like me and procrastinate.
Well, I've had a book that I've been working on for a long time too. And sometimes you get stuck. They say writer's block, or it could be having to do with editing, or that you have more that you want to put, but God hasn't revealed it to you quite yet. And you're thinking, I know there's something else, and I cannot release this until X, Y, and Z is ready.
Yeah, and then you'll know. And I think we should write the book, unto God, don't get me wrong, but do it for yourself. And I think that will somewhat take the pressure off, but absolutely. Sometimes there's just like this resistance that, all right, there's something not right. It's just not the timing. The timing's not right. And we talked about timing in the beginning of your show. If God's not opening the door and you could try to jackhammer it sometimes and it won't open. So it's discernment, like you mentioned, and you just kind of go with the flow with it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe in 20 years we'll talk and I'll be like, yeah, it's done.
I love it. I love it. No, I mean, but projects are really good to have. They keep the creativity there. And a lot of times there's just different things in life that bring betterment to it, to the table,
Right.
and so on and so forth. But if you were going to share some really key insights about things that you've learned and would help our audience to move in a direction that allows them to see things a little bit different, what kind of things might you share?
As far as like politically or
It could
in your
be
daily
anything,
life?
just things that you've learned.
Oh goodness. I think one of the main things I've learned is to not rely on other people's opinions and their criticism. And sometimes their praise. If God's calling you to do something and He's calling you, you need to go for it. And it's very difficult if you're in a job that's difficult, or you don't feel you don't know what to do because you got to pay your bills and what have you. Listen to God. And I think people can really get you off track because you allow them, and it's because we're emotional beings. So I've learned that, and I'm still learning not to let people impact my decisions.
That's powerful.
Yeah, I've learned, and I've been hurt by it, to be quite frank with you. So it's and then you can get yourself in such a tizzy that you're off somewhere on the left, and you should be down the road and on the right somewhere else. So
That is so true. That is just absolutely true. In fact, so much so that we don't talk about that very much, in how much other people's input affects us. And a lot of times the input that we're receiving from different sources, whether it be media, close friends, family, church, it can be anywhere. And if we really take all of those things to heart, it can really hinder us.
Yeah.
So my question would be, how, if for someone in the audience who might be asking, how do you separate that so that I don't allow myself to be so focused on that person's statement, because really ultimately it comes down to self-worth at that point.
It really does. And it really, there can be somewhere where there's a root of rejection or something, or baggage that we've carried for years and years. And there needs to be some type of deeper healing, because it's overnight. And these are these wrong patterns that we get into, because we're looking for that acceptance. And, and that's why we marvel in people's approval. And there's nothing wrong with praise and getting approval, but when you don't get it, and the lights are down and there's no one there and it's only you and God, that's where it gets real. And
yes.
It's I wish I could have a magic wand. I don't know. I would say trust God and try not to trust your feelings, because they're going to lead you. They'll make you nuts.
Well, that's a really, really crucial point that you're making, because if we rely, since we have been conditioned on instant gratification, if we rely just on what we feel in that moment, we definitely will get steered down the wrong path.
Yeah, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And there's other things going on in your life, and you can get yourself in a kind of a spiritual hole in a way.
That's true.
Hard. So reaching out to people that can give you accountability and who can encourage you, that can help. That can help. And just reading the word and encourage, even if you got to put posties all over your house to encourage you to stay, if you're stay focused, even if you're at work and you just, oh my goodness, my supervisor or whatever it may be, coworkers, keep it on your desk, do something. I don't care, write it on the palms of your hand. I know it's ridiculous, but just something to just make sure it's constantly in you, because we're getting this constant bombardment, not only from the media, but from, people we work with, and it just goes on and on and on, and it helps. It's not the cure, but it helps.
Right. And the irony in it is we're both in media, and so and so we're sharing messages to help people move forward, but generally that's not what we're seeing as a typical response. It's usually things that bring about a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear. in
Yeah.
people and unhealthy behaviors. And so I think that just what you're doing and your focus with the Christian Post
Mhm.
is
Thank you.
it's just so valued and powerful that
Thank you.
if someone's going to want to go and get information, obviously it's in the opinion, the voices section, tell the viewers how they can go and start reading some healthy opinions and allow them to expand some things, because I really think that the more we learn and the more we involve ourselves, the opportunities for us to bring up our self-esteem, have confidence, and really begin to move in directions that we didn't think that we were capable of is very, very important. So share with the audience how they can read what you have going.
Sure. No, thank you so much for the platform. They can just go on the Christian Post and you can look out the sections and we're voices. And I can also share my email if you're interested in contributing. Um,
Yes.
and we do, current events, news, culture, politics, absolutely. And just send them to me. And if it's okay, can I share my email?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I didn't know. It's Corine, Corine, at cmcigroup.com. Just send it to me. I need about 500 words. We'll shape it a little bit, but just communicate with me and we'll flesh out ideas on what's going on. And a lot of times I will pitch ideas to the writers. As you know, like it's so busy. It's so busy going on, whether it's Trump or it's the NRA, the controversy now with that. So just send your stuff and your ideas to me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And a lot of people don't realize that there is a platform for their voice to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it just takes that we're inviting you, and that's what we're doing with you right now, audience, is inviting you to send your contributions in, because we want to hear you. And there are a lot of other people who do as well. It's very interesting, Corinne, how tunnel vision, if we're only exposed to certain things, leads us one way. But by broadening our scope of different perspectives, it allows for massive growth, internal, external, and even societal. So I think that this is a wonderful platform.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca, for allowing me to share. I appreciate it.
Well, most definitely. And I think that the insight that you've shared with the audience today is a really great perspective, so that they could take something today and begin to move it in a direction that allows them to make some healthy changes. And that's what I'm all for. So I definitely want to have you back on the show. I invite you to have your own show, because I think you've got some things that are going to be fantastic.
I love you.
To get out there. I mean, you have a voice with what you do.
Well, I'm glad you love my voice. My husband's like, it's a little loud, but thank you. No, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity. I'd be honored to be on again. I'm learning
Most
from
definitely.
you too. So thank you.
And let me ask you this.
Yes.
If you were going to take the one thing that you can say grounds your world, and I think we all know the answer, that this is how I really allow the audience to get in their brain. What is it, the one grounding factor in your world?
For me, especially with the challenges, and we've had a couple losses of life in our family, it's been the Word of God. And it's been my point. I just want to share is that, as much as I don't sometimes want to get out of bed in the morning and don't want to read the Word, but just feeding your soul, even though you're like, you glance at it, at least you're getting it in. And I think that has been a foundation where if I don't read the Word or see it somewhere during a day, I just feel like there's something not right. It's like not having my coffee. Okay. So
I love it.
The Word of God. Oh my goodness, the Word of God, the Word of God. So yes, the Word. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You knew that. You knew it was going to be the Word.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
And I want to thank all of you for watching today. And as Corinne said, There is nourishment that you need. We need it not only physically to be able to get through each day and to live a healthy life and a long life, but we need nourishment for our soul. And without that, we really can't begin to move forward the way that we want to in the directions that we see. You got to have goals, but you've got to have the food, and food is knowledge. And without it, being well rounded in nourishment physically, mentally, and spiritually, then we can remain stuck in a lot of different areas. We've talked a lot about some things today that are going to help you move in the right direction, 3 to be specific, and I hope that if you haven't caught all 3 of them, that you'll go back and watch again, because these are important messages for you. With this show today is an article on how you can get in contact with Corine. You can contribute, you can learn more, and become educated and get wise. As we get older, we become a lot more wise, and this really allows us some really positive steps. And so I am really excited to have had Corine with us on the show today. I'm excited to have you watch, and I encourage you to take all the steps necessary every single day to get nourished, to be fed, and to be moving forward. Thanks for watching today.